How do you deal with your idiot adult child? In this video, I'm going to give you some detailed answers. There are 3 solutions by the time we're done with this video that you're going to learn. Solution 1 is the one I recommend. Solution 2 is frustrating and will probably raise your blood pressure. Number 3 is what a lot of people end up doing because of frustration and they just can't put up with it anymore. The reason I'm making this video is because almost every single day, patients come into my office with neck pain, headaches, high blood pressure, shoulder pain, and I say, what happened? Did you get in a car accident? Did you fall off a roof? Did you trip and fall? Have an injury? No. They're just stressed. And I say to them, well, we could fix your neck, but ultimately you want to fix the cause. What's giving you trouble? Why do you have so much neck pain? Usually it's stress. And I have a face that just screams, tell me your story. Even though sometimes I look at patients like this. It doesn't work. They keep telling me their stories. Let me paint a picture and see if this doesn't ring true for some people. Now, this excludes everyone who has the perfect child, who's the Super Bowl quarterback and the high school quarterback who's got straight A's, he's got a 4.7 GPA, and he's never gotten in trouble, and he cuts his hair, and he showers, and he brushes his teeth. You know, you think you're a good parent. It wasn't you, by the way. It was them. You just happened to almost get in the way. Parents always tell me this, and this just happened. Your child, who is 30 years old, still living at home, seems to just keep doing bong hits every day for their anxiety, but they don't really know that what they bought was oregano. They think it's pot. They don't have a job. They're extremely vocal about their political opinions, and they are the term is woke, that it's annoying. And anytime you try to have a conversation with them, like a 4-year-old, they put their fingers in their ear and scream, nah, 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 I can't hear you. Am I wrong? Now, you've raised your kids a certain way and you want them to succeed in life, so you're going to try to talk to them, and it just doesn't work, and you get more frustrated. Suddenly, you have a big fight with your child. Next morning, you wake up, you can't move your neck because of the stress. Am I off base here? Because this is what people tell me. The main problem with this is that you're the one suffering. You're the one with the high blood pressure. You're the one that doesn't feel as though you raised your children right. What's wrong with you? And you're hurting. And you come in to see me to try to fix these problems. Before I give you the 3 solutions that you can try, let me explain something in detail. And that is that this has been going on since the beginning of time. I'm not talking when Adam ate the apple. I'm talking about, let's just do our generation, okay? Think back, the Beatles. When those long-haired hippie freaks came to America, what did every teenage girl do? They just screamed and fainted. Everybody loved the Beatles, except the parents. The parents couldn't figure out why the hell these lunatics were singing weird songs. And I wasn't around in the Beatle era, but I've seen footage, and it must have been an awful experience for a parent to have their child following these 4 freaks from Liverpool. Well, they were singing songs about love and Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. And when they really got in trouble is when they wrote a song called Working Class Hero. And that just didn't upset the parents. That upset the government. And there must have been at that time conversations at the dinner table, when families used to sit at the dinner table, between one generation and the new generation. And it must have been just an awful experience. Now let's fast forward to Vietnam. Now, when Vietnam happened, there were the young people were all of a sudden protesting the war. Their parents and their grandparents never protested a war. In fact, some of the parents in World War II and great-grandparents World War I probably faked their age to get into the military to fight for the country, to protect freedom. And here they are, they're drug-induced, long-haired, hippie, stupid kids were protesting Vietnam, burning their draft cards. How embarrassing. Now, I remember as a young child, I don't remember what age I was, 8, 9 years old, something like that. My grandmother and mother took me and my brother to the movies at the Chinese Theater in Los Angeles, and we saw a movie called Hair. I remember it being an awesome day. They took us to lunch. I think we went to Bob's Big Boy. That was the best. And I remember coming out of that movie theater singing. I wanted the album, the soundtrack. Well, it wasn't until when I became an adult, meaning over 40, I watched the movie Hair again. And I couldn't believe that my grandmother and mother took a child to this movie. This was the most horrific, emotionally disturbing movie. Now, the music was good, but if you've seen the movie, and I'm going to ruin the ending for you here. So if you haven't seen the movie, fast forward 20 seconds. But the movie was about literally a coming of age movie where the generation of children were protesting Vietnam, were protesting the government, and their parents couldn't figure out how to deal with them. It was the clash of the generations. And there was a scene where he was dancing on the table and the church ladies were horrified. But the most disturbing scene was when one of these kids joined the military and was walking along, singing a song, getting on one of those big planes to go to Vietnam. And he was singing, and it was emotional. I mean, the tears that you feel when you know that this person, the actor, knew he was not coming home. And at the end of the movie, they sang a song, and it was around his funeral. But the generation before that would have done anything to fight for this country, to fight the enemy, to protect freedom. But the generational gap caused a rift. Now, on a lighter note, think now back to the 80s. I can't believe my parents put up with us, but I was a total Van Halen fan, Metallica, Black Sabbath. Remember Dio? Remember the album? Holy Diver. Holy Diver. Oh my God. How about the first album of just Van Halen? Running with the devil. I mean, Running with the Devil. What would have my grandparents thought if they knew I was listening to that music? Long hair. I remember when our kids were little, somehow or another we were in the car, and I asked my wife, "What do you want to do with the rest of your life?" And she naturally said, "I want to rock." And we were laughing hysterically. My kids had no idea what the F we were talking about. So we took them home and we went on the internet and found the music video from MTV, from Twisted Sister. And they looked at us horrified. What on earth were you people doing in the 80s? And there was a clash between my generation and my parents, naturally. Humorously, this is why the TV show Family Ties was such a good show. Michael J. Fox literally took over that show. But if you remember what the show was about, the show was about some Woodstock, freedom-loving people that grew up and had children, and God forbid they had a child who came out of the womb Republican. So my point of saying all these things is that what I'm telling you is that it is natural and totally normal for one generation to do the exact opposite of the previous generation. So when you get frustrated that, like Jim Brewer said, he sent his beautiful child off to college, $120,000 later, 4 years later, she came back from college, wasn't any smarter, didn't even know what gender she was. This generation, although it seems as though they're freaking nuts and they're just idiots, they're really no different than any other generation. You know, in high school, I remember being forced to read like Shakespeare and stuff, and I remember some kid asked, "Why do we have to read this? This is stupid," you know? And I remember this. I don't know why I remember these things, but my teacher said something to the effect of, there are certain human things that occur regardless of the era. And what you'll learn from Shakespeare is that jealousy, envy, greed, these are things that occur regardless of what the time is. So what are the solutions? How do you deal with these, what seems like they're just idiots? There's 3 ways. The first way is to understand that since the beginning of time, children will always revolt against their parents. They will always do something different. They will view the world differently. And the best solution is to just love them and accept that this is the circle of life. And to not judge them so harshly, and to understand that, don't forget, it's possible in the 80s or 70s, you were smoking dope, having sex out in a field of mud, and you don't even know who you were with. You may not even remember it, but somehow you remember it was the best time ever. So I tell patients this, that you gotta stop stressing. It isn't worth it. It isn't worth you dying of high blood pressure, having a stroke and having a heart attack, just because your idiot kids are different than you. You were different than your parents. Your parents were different than their parents. And it started a long time ago, and it's not going to change. So once you accept that fact, it's easier to deal with. The second choice is what you've been doing already, is trying to change them and trying to argue with them and trying to logic with them. It's weird, I understand, that a group of people that wants to accept everyone, that wants inclusion for everyone, includes everyone except your generation. I get it. There's no arguing with them, because what they've been taught by TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and all of social media, which by the way is our Encyclopedia Britannica. This is how they're getting information. They're very confused, and they're learning how to deal with you. And that is yell louder, cover your ears, and when in doubt, throw a tantrum and run away. That's their mechanism of coping. It's not right, but it may be right according to them. But you're never going to win the argument. So stop trying to convince them. Stop trying to tell them to say please and thank you. Stop trying to get them to have your values. It just doesn't work. In the words of Dr. Phil, how's that working out for you? Well, it isn't. So constantly battling your adult children who, they're 27 years old, their next birthday, seems like they're going to be 14. It doesn't work. It hasn't worked. So stop. It's just not worth the high blood pressure. The third solution, which I've seen before, is to just kick their ass out. Get them out of the house. Do it the hard way. and just say, we're done with you. Get rid of them. Abandon them. This is sometimes a good solution, but more often than not, both parties never heal from it. Both your child and you will always have a difficult time with this. And it's really not the best long-term solution. So the next time you see your chiropractor for a neck adjustment or muscle treatment or laser therapy or massage or whatever you're doing for your headaches and neck pain and shoulder pain and high blood pressure and all these things, just remember that you do want to treat ultimately the cause of the problem. It's not good enough to treat symptoms. We all know this. But very often the underlying cause is the emotional turmoil and stress that you're feeling from having to deal with this generation. We might not be around long enough to witness the next generation. I have no idea what it's going to be like. But if we're lucky, the pendulum swings both ways. Who knows? Our kids, if they ever figure out which parts go together with their genders, they might actually have children. Wouldn't it be funny if out popped a Michael Keaton?